Hello there, it's me, Michael, with High Plains Design Studio. I'm actually in the middle of developing a plugin for RPG Maker RMV. So I'm just figured instead of doing it all alone, I'd go ahead and start live streaming for the sake of posterity or whatever. First, I want to make sure I got this going. Yeah, it looks like it's going great. So hopefully it goes well. I am working in the RPG Maker MV. So let me get set up. All right, that should be it right there. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm in the middle of creating a plugin that allows the character to pick up events and throw them. Oh, that was me. So, for example, here's the game, and as of right now, nothing really happens. I see some things going on in my console, and that's about it. This is programmed in. I've got what's known as the HPDS throwable plugin. It is a plugin that I've created myself, and it allows you to throw your events. So let me go ahead and show you what I mean. So I'm going to go ahead and change this. If you know anything about the RPG Maker, you can understand how this event editor works. This is how you control the actions, the events of your game. And you'll see that I've got, this is going to be a set of codes. This is a video game called Max Labor Force. It's about people doing jobs. That's just a very rough overview of it, I guess. But what's going on here is that I've got some scripts in it, and I've been working with these scripts, kind of testing it, and making a little demo for it, prototype or whatever. And I'm gonna transfer this scripts from this scripting. I'm gonna put it into the plugin, and that way I can work with it through this plugin instead of actually using it, having to put in all this script within my event. So that's why the title of this particular stream is all about, changing, manipulating events through this plugin. So let me go ahead and change this stack 3, and I'm gonna change it to what the plugin allows me to do. And my plugin allows you to say throwable, and you give it a number. We'll say 3, and we'll just go ahead and apply that and okay that. Let's save that. And here's this game, pops up. Now I'm gonna now if you notice, the plugin allows me to carry it, and I throw it. Oh, and I'm throwing it. You can't see it. This has to do with direction fix. There it is right there. Okay, for the sake of posterity, this is practical game development, so I'm gonna go ahead and do what I would normally do. Fixed movement. Now let's see, we go press the direction fix because I don't have too many images with this cone. We'll apply that, okay it, save it, come back to this game, pick it up. This time, there you go. Now you can see it. This is what the plugin allows you to do. Okay, now what I want to do, and what I'm trying to do overall, and that will be the goal, and I don't know how long I'll stream for, but I'm going to be making an event that allows me to stack it. So I want to have a stack of cones here. So this character in this video game is going to interact with an event, but instead of that event being this single cone, it's going to be a stack of cones. And when you click on that stack of cones, ultimately what's going to happen is you're going to pick up a little cone from that stack, and that's what it is. It's going to be a throwable event that allows you to stack. So you can pick up multiple throwable items. So say for example, you can think of rocks. Maybe you want a bunch of rocks, rock pile there, and you go to the rock pile and you want to pick up the rock pile, and you'll pick up a few rocks and you'll throw one at a time. And that's exactly what's going on here. The point of this game is that he's going to grab a pile up from a cone from a pile of cones, and he's going to come and he's going to have to throw, the character is going to have to throw them onto this little spot in the road. And of course I'm going to have to change it, and I'll change everything to where it's 1. But see, there's going to be a cone on that line just like in the street, and there he goes, he's putting a cone down. See how that works? So that's going to be the point of this game, or this particular point in the game. And I need a stack of cones. So let's get into it. So that's why what we do is, the original plugin allows me to put throwable in the notes in this note tag, and so I put throwable with the number. I'm going to change this number to 1 to make it more manageable for my character when I test this out. So now if I press apply, throwable 1, let's save this, and now we go ahead and click on it. Here we are, I pick up my, now it only jumps 1, so now it's easier to put my character to put his there. So I want this event instead to give me, when I click on the event, it'll give me to where I'm already holding a cone, but it'll give me a cone, and that event will stay there though. It'll be a stack of cones, but it'll give me a cone, and I'll be able to put like a, I don't know, I guess I'll put like a limit of how many cones I can pull out at once or what have you, but that's additions that I'll make to the plugin as I go along. So let's see, what am I going to go ahead and do for. So before I get started, I guess I'm going to show a couple of resources that I'll be using. First off, obviously, I'm using the RPG Maker. If you want to get the RPG Maker, you can go to their website, RPG Maker. It runs you right now, I'm not entirely sure what the product is running you, the RPG Maker MV. It's running $80, $79.99. So go ahead, and if you'd like to make video games, let's go ahead, and I'm gonna go ahead and turn off this music that I've been listening to. And you can watch their little, I suggest you'd watch the trailer. I'm not gonna watch it, and take a look at it. $79.99. It allows you to make really cool little games, but comes with a bunch of graphics, a lot of graphics on its own. It allows you to do this. You can make mobile games with it, and it plays like what a lot of people would say. I would throw out that name, like Final Fantasy 3 kind of games. You can make other types of games, and like I said, it's great because you can use JavaScript to manipulate or to change the course of the game, and to add your own functionality. And that's exactly what I'm doing, because the functionality I'm adding now is not something that comes standard, and so that's why I'm using the plugin. So go ahead and take a look at that. That's one resource I'll be using. The next resource is VSCode, and I'm just going to do a Google search for that. You know, if you're a developer, you know all about Google searching. Visual Studio Code. It's a great IDE or whatever you want to call it. It's a text editor. Great for JavaScript, and I'll be using that. I have a few plugins and extensions that make this. I think I have one that's called the live edit or something. Let me see, live. Let me see. That's something I don't need. I've got it. It's called live server. Launch a development local server. And so what I've done is I've opened up my project here, my my RPG Maker, my RMMV project, and I've gone ahead and launched it. And when I launched it, it comes out in this um, browser here, and that's what I'm doing. So as I save the game over here, it actually will reload as well. So for example, when I save it here, it will reload the game, and I can continue on. And this is a great way to develop, um, as a developer, to develop into this JavaScript RPG Maker stuff. So let's get into it. I'm also going to be using this website here, and I'm not entirely sure what it's called, the RPG Maker MV library. I'm not entirely sure if I can show you the it's keenor.github.io. I don't even know how to spell it. Keenor.github.io. I'll link a bunch of this stuff in the description eventually for this video. But what's great about this website is that it's got all the classes for this MV library. So you'll see your bitmap, cache entry, and if you look down, your game event, and we'll be working with a lot of these, and we'll be taking a look at these. It also shows you the variables that come along with this, but ultimately you'll see it. It's really great. It's a great tool to when you're developing plugins because it shows you all the classes. And yeah, you can find this in your library if you went ahead and searched through your objects, your scenes, and your sprites and so forth. It's all here in the code, but this website has gone ahead and put it in a great kind of documented way. And so I thank these guys for making this. And other than that, I think that's probably all I'll be using for now. I might grab some other things and I'll link whatever I need to link to as I go by. But let's get into it. So now what I want to do is, like I said, I have it says throwable one, and I don't want throwable one. I want it to say stack, and let's say I want to stack 5. I want to stack 5 of them. So when I click on this, I want it to give me an event that is throwable, and I want that event to be, I want to be carrying that event, and I want this to have 5, say, charges of that. So you can do that 5 times, and then the stack will, let's say, disappear. So that's what I'm trying to do. So let's go into my programming here, and now I'm getting into it. This is the plugin that I created originally. If you know how to make a plugin, I don't have a video on that, but I'm sure I'll eventually make one. But it already has. What's going on here is that I've got the plugin reading that I'm overriding. I'm aliasing the game event class right here. You can see that. And when the game event initializes, I'm taking a look at the event's metadata, which is that note tag, and I'm doing different things. So right here you can see that I'm checking the event's meta for that throwable tag, and I've got a few I've got some code to change all that up, and to to look for a different number, to make sure that it's it's above 0 and it's not a negative number, and that it's not and that it is actually a number. That's what this is checking. If if it's not a number, or if the number is below 0, we're gonna go ahead, if it's equal to, or we're gonna change that throwable distance to 1. So this is all for the throwable. But like I said, I'm changing that throwable to something, I'm going to call it stack. So I've gone down below this code, and here you can see what I've got it to do. This section will establish the StackX functionality. So this is where I'm at. And this is wherein I've decided to go ahead and see what I can stream for however long. It's kind of late for me, but I'm going to do it for a little while longer while I work, just to kind of show my mindset on how I go about this. So I do have an if statement, and that if statement is checking the data map events with the event ID, and we're checking the meta, and I'm checking the stack, and that it all comes from that data map. So if you know the data map, this is where we're going to use this library here. We're going to go check out the globals, and this data map is actually, if you notice it, it is it's a variable within RPG Maker, and it says it is the map data for the current map. So it's the data map is right here, and you'll see it's a type of object class map. And so you'll see that this is the data class for maps. And so it's got an interface for some encounters, and it's got some properties here. And you'll see you can change some of these properties, like autoplay BGM, which is the background music, BGS, which is backgrounds. You can change the battle back, data. But here what we're looking for is, once again, what was that? It was datamap.events. So this is JavaScript, and hopefully you're familiar with JavaScript. I'm not going to explain it too much, but the data map has events. And so when we look at events, we see events here, and events is telling you that it is an array. So it is an array in the array of RPG event data. So it's an array of events. So let's click on events, and you'll see that this is an interface event. So basically, this array that is called datamap.events, right here we'll see this event ID, and event ID comes from, where does this event ID come from? This actually comes from the initialization of the game event. So when the game event initializes, and this is something kind of understanding from the RPG Maker, if you understand what's going on, is I'm gonna not discard, I'm gonna apply, and okay, let's go ahead and save that. So what's going on with RPG Maker, a little background, is you can make events, and here's an event right here, and these events let you make pictures. You can put all kinds of pictures of whatever you have, and so for example, like I'm gonna go, I think there's a rock around here somewhere. Where's this rock? I lost the rock. There it is, other. And we're going to grab the rock. There's a rock. And I'm going to put throwable. And we're going to make it throwable 1. And this metadata, this is something that, if you don't know, it is actually included in the RPG Maker system, that you can put tags in the notes. And these tags are just simply something that you surround with these, carrots over here, the less than and greater than signs, and you put a name, you put a semicolon, or actually this is a real colon, that's a full colon, and then you put some other value at the end of it, and then you close it out with your caret over here. So and when you do this, this will actually show up in the events meta, and that meta will have this. It'll be an object, and that object will be named whatever you have on the left, and its value will be whatever you have on the right hand side. So that's something that's inside of the RPG Maker that is just, you got to understand that, and you find that once again when we find this variable. Let me see. I was trying to get into. I'm already lost. But what's going on ultimately? with this event system is you make the events, and when you do the events, you can trigger them by touching them, by pressing a button on them, auto running them, and so forth. But when you make these uh, events, then they show up in your video game, and then you can also make them do things like you can make them talk. This here you can see, for example, let me go to this event that I just made, and you can put all kinds of commands. You can make messages. You can control the game progression by changing variables and switches. You can change items on your character party. You can change the actor. You'll notice you can also mess with flow control. So you can put like an if statement with this conditional branch. You can also put a loop that just loops a bunch of times and so forth. You can change the movement of the character. You can mess with the audio and video. You can do all sorts of things. And if you had the RPG Maker, you can go take a look to see what it can do. But then that way you can make events happen with your video game. So I can make this rock throwable when I wanted to, or I could make this rock. Let's get rid of this throwable, and let's say that when I want to show this monster's face, and the monster says, "Don't touch my rock." And he's just gonna yell at you. So this is part of it, and you're gonna trigger with the action button, apply it, and let's press OK. And so you'll notice that I've got several events here, and they're outlined, and that's part of the MV. So now we save it, and when I play it, there's that rock. And when I click on it, this guy, little monster, says, "Don't touch my rock." When I click on it, "Don't touch my rock." However, this one, nothing happens. Nothing's happening. Click on this guy, "Don't touch my rock." That's how the video game works. But there's also other events here. This is an event. This is an event. This guy, he's there, but I haven't had him programmed, or I have him turned off. I have him doing other things, and I have him disabled at the moment. But that's the event. So when this map starts, these events all cycle through, and they initialize themselves. They are all created, and they are held. They are held in that variable that is known as, that I was looking at, that data map dot events, which is an array of those events. So it's a data map event. So that's how I'm accessing this, and that's really what this is. So when I'm looking at this data map events, event ID, that event ID is coming from when it's actually initializing in the first place, which is this game event. And this is the game event that you can actually find right here in the globals, and it's class game event. Here it is, class game event. The game object declare class for an event. It contains functionality for event page switching and running parallel process events. So what I've done with this plugin is I've taken this event and I've kind of added to its initialization. So it's got a constructor over here, and this constructor, when it makes a new game, so when the map is loading and it makes a new game event, it's got a map ID and it's got an event ID. And so that event ID and that map ID you can see on the front end on my RPG Maker over here. So you can see that down at the bottom it says 02, and on this map it says 01. So it's a different map, and I can click on this and I can edit the map, and you'll even see ID, and this is the one map, and then this is the map I'm working on. And when I click on this one, you'll notice that the map ID is 2. So that's even that's showing you, but that's already included. When it's initializing, the program already knows its event ID, so that's why I've got it as a variable. Here's the eventual, and that's why I've aliased the initialization, and I've just gone ahead and initialized it like normal. But then I've added in all this extra coding to check the meta to change to add the plugin's functionality. So that's what I'm doing. Keep that in mind. And so there's the event ID. That event ID comes from the constructor of the event itself. So for every single event, we're checking the meta, and then we're checking for the object called stack. Okay, and what I'll do is right under here I'll add code. So in this code, all it's gonna do, I'm not gonna get rid of it. This code is gonna say console.log, and we're gonna go data map.events. So that's really what we're doing. We're gonna console log that data map events, and I'm gonna go ahead, and I've got autosave, which is a nice nifty thing. So when I come back to the game, it's already reloaded. So you'll notice that here on the console, and in order to get to this console, you just have to press inspect, and this console will open up for you when you're in your browser. So this is Google Chrome that I'm using, and Google Chrome, it'll show you, your HTML over here, but we're in the console. So the console log, I've console logged out the data map events. So this is the data map events right here. Looks like every time I've done it, you'll notice it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, and I've also got some other information here that's different. So what's going on in this code? What's going on here is that I've got if data map events has the meta stack information, you're gonna console log that data maps event. So you'll see here that ID number 3, so event with ID number 3, oh look, it says meta stack 5, and it says cones over here, and this is all the information from that event. But if you'll notice that when every other event initialized, it also showed this line of code. It console logged out this line, which this line of code is inside the initialization code from the whole class. And this is all, like I said, you're gonna have to, let's go ahead and remove that. That's something else, but this is within the class right here. So this console log runs for every in fact, that's what I'll write here. This code, let's see, this code executes for every event. So that's why it shows every single event. And if we go back to our RPG Maker, we'll notice that there's 1 event, 2 event, 3 event, 4 event. This is the character. This is not count as an event. This is the actual game player. So he's not an event. So you'll see event number 1, and it's the initialization event. And we got event number 3, and this guy is event number 2. ID you see right there. And the rock is event number 4. So there are 4 events, and this code has showed when they initialize, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 codes, and every one of them shows you all the different events, and then there it shows up one more time because there's one event in here that already has the stack metadata. And remember, that's what I'm checking for. At the end of the day, that's how I'm accessing this. I'm checking to see, hey, if there's a code, if there's an event that has this meta, this stack property in the meta, I'm going to start doing stuff. And that's where I've processed that out. And yeah, I'm not looking right now in the sources. I'm not really looking to watch anything. I could watch it. I guess, in fact, I have watched it. So if you go to the source, I've set it as a watch. I could just do that as well. Data map events, and you'll see here I am watching them. It's the same thing. It's the same information, just done in multiple places. Right now, I'm console logging it for the sake of seeing it a little easier than in the sources. It's a little bit smaller there. But that meta, what I was saying earlier about the meta, is that you'll see that, for example, here is the first event, and it is the one that's called, it says meta. In meta, it's got an object, and that object is just nothing. It's a blank object. It's got the name in it, and it's got a note, and in that note it says initializes map. So that event is this event, and you'll notice that I've got a name for it and I've got a note, but I don't have, I'm not, the note doesn't have the two carets on either side, so it's not in a tag. It's not in a meta tag, so it doesn't appear in the meta object. However, when we get to this object, and this is ID number 3, this one has stack, and it says cones, and the note says stack. But let's take a look at what that reads when we take a look at that object. So we go to ID object 3, which is that same one that shows down here. We'll see that now it says meta, and it does have an object in the meta called stack, and that stack is a string that reads the number 5, which is what I put in that tag over there. And it even shows the note, and the note is also, it shows the full text of my tag that says stack and 5. So that's what I was saying earlier about the meta being built into the RPG Maker. That's simply something that I have to, it's part of the, when we go to this class over here, if we remember, I was in this game map, and the game map, let's see, it had all the, actually in the event map, I think I'm already lost on this thing, so let's go ahead and find it again. So when we go to the data map variable, we find that the data map, the map module, has the events array. So remember the events array, and these events array, the interface has what's known as meta, and that's the meta. So that's that meta object. So it's a key string. So that's included, and so I just have to access each event's meta, and that's exactly what I've been doing right here, the meta stack. So the stack will pop, and all this is checking is, of course, if stack exists, we're going to console log. And this code up here does if throwable exists. I've got other code going on which allows you to throw. I don't have any console logs in that because it's pretty good, the code. I'm not going to mess with it right now. But this is how I'm going to start. I'm getting into this event right now. So now that's where that information comes from, and that's what I'm doing. And that's just this one little if statement. And this if statement is not something I'm gonna worry myself with now, because that's part of the throwing aspect of this plugin. I'm gonna now work with the stackable portion. So now this is gonna be, this section will, like I said, establish the stack. So now that I know how this is working, this meta, I can see what I'm messing around with here. So what am I going to do now? So now that I know this, let's get into my original code for this. You'll see that I had scripting before I started this, where I'm going to go ahead and edit this, and let's get rid of this, and let's get rid of this. And let's take a look at this script. What it's doing is it's taking a new ID, and I'm accessing the GameMap.events.length +1, and I'm taking a new map, so I'm making a new ID, and I'm taking a map ID, which is the actual map ID. And then I'm taking the pages. I'm getting a variable called pages, and it's actually an array of objects. And I'm calling a variable new event. And that event, I'm making an ID with the new ID that I made. I'm making it meta is null. I'm making the name cone, and I'm making the note throwable with 1. And I'm giving it a sound effect, and that's all from that. And I'm giving it an X and a Y coordinate of 10 and 10, which these are all for testing purposes. So what I've done is I'm trying to make a new event, and I'm taking the same data map dot events and I'm splicing in a new event is what I'm trying to do here. So this new event is going to be spliced into that data map events array that I've been working with in this plugin over here, so I can access this same variable from not just the plugin. I can actually access it within the event editor as well. And let's see what after I do that, I say I get a new page and I'm getting some conditions, and then I got the game map, setup events, and then I'm console logging, and this is all for testing purposes. And it's broken code. I'm gonna go ahead and do it. I'm gonna apply it and I'm gonna press OK. I'm gonna save it, and remember that was on this cone right here. This is gonna be my stack cone that I'm working with right now. So now when I click on it, oh, we've got a type error. It says cannot read property switch one valid of undefined. Cannot read property switch one valid of undefined. So now I'm going to go into what exactly is happening here. So what's gone on is that in this code, like I said, I've created a new ID, a new map ID. I've created some pages. I've created a new event, and then this new event I've actually I've actually put in the note and which I might as well put in the meta. Now that I think about it, I don't have it, but I'm gonna put in the throwable stack. So I'm gonna make a new event with the throwable, and it's gonna be just a throwable event, just like anything else. Like any of the other events, and I'm gonna kick it into the appropriate tags, everything that I got to do. But what's going on is when I try to when I click on it, it gives me cannot read property switch one valid. Well, I haven't even, if you notice, let's take a look at the variables that I have here. I got new ID, map ID, pages, new event, but then we got this data map events, and that's an array, so I'm splicing that array, and you'll see that with the new event 0 and new event, new ID, new event, and that's that new event that I just made. That's the new ID that I just created over here. So data map is a variable that we've come across. Up here we have game map, though. That's not one that I've just messed with, so let's go ahead and take a look at what game map is. Let's go here, and I'm going to go to the globals again on this website, go back to this variable called game map. And so this game map, you'll see it says the RPG Maker MV game map contains properties and methods for interacting with the game map. Some of these methods include interacting with the map's games, interpreter, and event information. So the game map is just like that. It's the game map. So it's a map, and if you'll see it, here's the class game map, and it comes with quite a few things. So what am I accessing when I click on this? Game map events, and you'll see that after the events I've got the parentheses, so that's telling me that's a function. So in the game app, let's go to methods. You'll see that it's got a function over here called events. And the events, let's see, returns all events on the game map. So somehow you actually can access the events through the game map as well. So I've got data map events and I've got game map events, but you'll see that it returns an array of these game maps. So there you are. The game maps, and the same thing over here, the data map, but the events will actually return to you an array of event, which is actually an interface. So what we're working with is actually an interface when you've got data map, and then when you've got game map and you're getting the events, you're actually getting the class game events. So that's what's going on, is you're getting a class versus an interface. And so that's why they're two different variables. But nonetheless, when I access game map over here, I'm taking all the events, and I'm taking that events will return to me an array, and that array I'm taking the length of it and I'm adding one, and that's how I'm making the new ID. So when you click on it, it's making this new ID, it's taking the length, it's doing all of that, and then that's how you're making the ID. So ultimately what I want is to keep increasing more events, and we're going to create more events. And like I said earlier, I'm going to try to splice them in here into this. I'm going to try to splice them into this events. But when I do right now, it gives me, like I said, ultimately the problem I'm running into is this: cannot read property switch one valid. Well, I haven't messed with this switch one valid variable. All we've messed with is game map, data map, and the variables that I've created within this own console. So that's all I've done so far. So what is this switch one valid? What property is this? So, well, we come to this switch one valid. We got to look to these. That what I am doing here is that the events, you have to take a look at what these events require. These events require an ID, and I've got the event ID. I set a meta. They have a name, a note, pages, X, and a Y. So when I set all of that information here, let's take a look at this. Let's go to edit. And over here you'll see that I set this ID, meta, and then I set a name for it. I set a note for it, and you'll see that that note is that note, but I've also set pages. Right here, this is pages. Pages equal pages, and then I set an X and a Y. So that's what I set this is my variable called new event. So that's the new event I'm making. But if you notice, my pages up here is just an array of empty objects. So when I go to page, all I've set is conditions, which is actor. I've set conditions, but that's all I've set over here. Actually, yeah, that's all I've set. And this was in the scripting of the event editor. And I got to the point where I said, you know what, this is too much for this little box, and what I'm trying to do, I need to move this into the plugin. So that's why I went ahead and coded it out. I commented it out. Let's comment this out. So now I can apply it, okay it, and I'm gonna still try to revisit. I'm explaining what happened. This switch one valid. So I made that event page, but we'll see that there is a pages. The pages are supposed to have an array of event page. So that's what I was doing here. Was pages is empty. It's an array of objects. And right here we've got page, which just conditions is all I had. Page. So pages right here is the array of event page, and the event page here is a module in JavaScript, and it's the data class for the event page. So when I look through this is where we saw conditions. I put conditions, and you'll notice that conditions is a set of conditions, and if we click on this interface for conditions, we'll see that there's an actor ID and an actor valid. Among other properties. So I had gotten to the point where I had put actor ID, where I was putting an actor ID. I was hard coding this in, mind you, and I was putting actor valid, and you'll notice where I put a comma, and I was going to put a lot more, but of course I was smart over here, and I was looking at my documentation, And I was noticing that I need actor ID, actor valid, item ID, and if we remember, what is one of them? Switch one valid. If we look here, oh, look at this, switch one valid. It was looking for this Boolean. It needs a Boolean, the truth value indicating whether the first switch condition is valid. So what it's looking for is, as I was writing this code, it was trying to say, hey, I've got these conditions over here as how this event works. And again, this is the RPG Maker. If you're familiar with RPG Maker, you can set conditions. So here's your trigger. And your trigger is your action button, your player touch, your event touch, your auto run, your parallel, so forth. So the trigger is when this button, when this event is touched by when it is pressed with the action button. But I could also do conditions. I can put a switch here, and that switch can be false, or it could be false or true. And if it's false, it won't run. And I don't have any switches set, but it allows you a few switches. You can also set a variable. You can also set a self switch, but you could also set an item that perhaps your character needs an item, or your class needs or you need an actor in your party and so forth. So there are conditions, and what was going on is this page needed conditions that were not being fulfilled, and so ran into a type error. There's no switch one valid. It's null right now, and it needs a Boolean. You see what I'm saying? And so that's what I decided at that point, because look how many, if you take a look at it to my conditions, how many conditions I needed. And that's just one thing that I need, because as well as that event page, the event page all need conditions. It needs direction fix, it needs an image, a list, a move frequency, a move route. All these things are part of an event page. So when I make, every event has pages. So I'm going to be making a new event, and that event has pages that will already have been built over here in my previous portion of this plugin. If you'll notice, it jumps from 42 to line 130. I'm going to go ahead and expand that, and you'll see that I am already changing pages over here. I am altering the pages, and I'm right here. You'll notice that this page 1, I've created conditions. I put the direction fix, image, list, the move frequency, the move route, and so forth. I've actually done this for previous, and that's what I'm trying to piggyback, kind of use this stuff so that when I throw in that tag, it will actually take this information and build pages kind of built off of this with that throwable tag on it. So again, the point of this is when I click on this stack, this event that has the stack node, I want it to be able to I'll be able to be carrying cones that I can throw. So once again, I want this to all to be in a plugin. So that's what's going on here once again. So when I click on it, I'm going to make an event, and that event is going to be made with the code I already have, and all I have to do is throw a tag in there that says throwable with the number and so forth. So that's what I'm banking off of right here. So the pages, let's get back to it. So that's why I went ahead and did this. So now I'm going to go ahead and start recreating this scripting in the plugin over here. All I've got it is console login right now, and that's not, that's not doing anything. So let's go ahead and let me save this. After I've saved that, let me take a look at something. Now when I'm doing this here, you'll see just our console logs like normal, and I'm pressing this, and now nothing's happening again. Clicking on this, don't touch my rock. We're taking a look at this, and so now we are not having the error. That's great. That's great. But let's go ahead and remove all this. I don't want this code right here. I'm gonna go ahead and comment that out. We'll do that if we need that later. I don't want this. I was doing this earlier. I don't really need this anymore. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this. So now what I'm gonna have to do is just like what I was doing in this code, is I'm gonna go ahead and start making all this new stuff. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'll go ahead and copy. I'll edit this and I will copy, and I'm gonna go ahead and paste it over here. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to recreate this code, and that code was getting to a point to where I was really just I need to make that whole page, and I just didn't have enough space over here in the script. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to do over here. But at the same time, we have to take a look at some things here. I'm getting a type error again, so this is already telling me, and it already knows automatically that there's a problem with this code. And so I'm gonna go back to this code, and we know this code is wrong, so we're gonna go ahead and do that. So great, so that's the current code, and I'm gonna just do it for, I'm gonna say reference code taken from in-game event. So I'm just gonna put that note. So now we're going and we're gonna take a look at something here, and I'm gonna take a look at, I am watching the events here. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a look at these events, and we're going to see how a page is made. So you see that there's conditions. This page, this is the initialization page, and it's got 2 pages on it. And the first page, when I open it, it's got conditions, direction, fix, image, list. It's got all those things that we were looking for. But there's something in particular that we should be looking at that says list, and it's the list. So when we go to pages, here's the event pages. Part of the properties is something called list. Well, the list is a list of event commands. So an RPG event command array. So in this initialization, if you'll notice this, I've got a lot of pages. I've got a lot of lines of code. So that's what's going on here. And also, let's take a look at, let's change this from stack to throwable. And we're going to go ahead and put 1. And we'll see now all of this is going to change, but that doesn't matter. So we're going to go back to it. So why is this not? There it is. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look for that. I know it's item 3, and it's the one that reads cones. It's got the note, but it's got pages in here, 3 pages. And these are 3 pages that are built into the plugin. And they are not in this, here they are. So this one has no pages. But when we look at initialization, this one has 2 pages. And if we look at this other guy right here, he's got 1 page. This all shows up in the various events. Event has pages, an array of 2. Like I said, page 2 has pages, and it's just 1. It's got the 1, which is that's this character right here. He's just got 1 page. When we take a look at the cone, though, it suddenly has 3 pages, even though in the RPG Maker it had no pages. So you can see how I'm already building pages on a different portion, on the different part of the plugin. And there is the list. The list is what I'm really going to be focusing on this plugin, because this list, when you look at it, you can recreate. You can basically, the reason why I was doing the contents over here, when I was doing this script, the reason why I was doing this was so that I could recreate what's going on by taking a look at this list over here. And when you take a list, this list is the contents of your event. All this is a list. So every time I do something right here, something's happening. When I add more to the list, I could, show choices. I could, let's go again. Let's go to a message. I'm trying to put a message here. Show text. I want to show text. Actually, you know what? I don't need to do that. I'm already review the one that I had. Yeah, if we take a look at this this rock, we see that it has got a list, and it's got a code, and it's got a whole bunch of things here: code, an indent, and parameters. So the list, let's take a look. This list is an event command. So these event commands are these event contents right here. So you can actually do something in this right here in your RPG Maker, and you can make it do something. But if you want to make it, say, happen over and over and over again, you can actually make a plugin and copy these codes over here into your list, and all of a sudden you can have a page with a complicated complicated set of commands that you were able to figure out using the RPG Maker front end and put it into the back end plugin, which is interesting. But and that's kind of what I did here. So you'll see that I kind of I figured out how to make my character do all this using the scripting, and then I kind of took a look at this list over here, and I found out that every list, when you look at it, it's got a code, an indent, and parameters. And so the code tells you, if you take a look at the code is kind of what's important, because every code has different parameters. And the parameters is the array, and you'll take a look at the code. And the code is a number, and that's what you're seeing right here is a code 101 followed by 401. So if you remember 101, the first code I did was, it popped up, it was the message, and that message is that little monster, and that monster says, what does he say? He says, don't touch my rock, right? And that's kind of, when we take a look at this, we'll see that the two different codes, don't touch my rock, and we'll see that there's one has, of this list, it's an array. Remember, the list is an array, and that array has 3 items. And the first item, in index 0 is code 101, and it's got the parameters of monster 102. So that's the picture. And then when we go to the second list item, it's got code 401 with parameters of an array that just says don't touch my rock, which is the script that I wrote in there. So after that, the very next item, the third item, has code 0 with nothing, parameters. It's an empty array. So basically it builds like kind of an empty command at the end of these events. And this was built inside of RPG Maker. This is remember that code that I was just taking a look at is this rock right here, and it's just that monster. Remember, if I edit it, it's this monster guy that says don't touch my rock, and so forth. So if those commands, now we'd have to find those commands. Where are we going to find those commands? Well, I'll show you where these commands can be found. When you go to Game Interpreter, we'll notice that it has all these different commands. Command 101, command 102 as part of its methods. And we take the class game interpreter. The game interpreter is the interpreter for running event commands. So this is the class game interpreter. And once again, this is all stuff that can be found in the RPG objects, which is the library that's built into it whenever you make an RPG game. This is part of the library that's installed. And like I said, I'm just looking at the documentation for it here on the internet instead of on my code editor and looking at the hard code. But I will probably look at the hard code for these commands, because if you notice, there are a lot of commands. Now these commands, there's commands 115, 124 for example, 203, and then 221, 217, 223, let's get into 245, 246, 249, and you'll notice that they don't quite correspond to actual counts. They're not real counts. There's not 101 commands. There's not 244 commands. It's just command 244, command 301, 302, 303, 311, 312, 313. So they're following some sort of a pattern here, and it goes all the way into command 411, so forth. These commands are all mimicking these commands from all the choices that you have. So when I press event commands, it's basically following the pages and the number and the sections. So basically, we had command when we took a look at this, we had command 101. So we look at command 101 is show text. So we know that command 101 is showing section page 1, section 0, command 1. And we noticed that afterwards we had command 401, right? Is it 101 and 401? So when we go ahead and we take a look at command 401, let's find 401. Command 402. So you'll notice that there is no command 401. So that's interesting. So what is going on here? We find that there's some going on that even though we have commands, we have in the class, you won't find every single command when you take a look at the parameters here, because every single one of these commands may be doing other things, and all the commands are doing something different. So command 101 is showing text. So if we have to go to the I believe it's the RPG objects. So when we go to, I'm going to go ahead and let's go find command 101. 101. So we can actually find this show text. The game interpreter has its command 101, and so this is the game interpreter command 101. So this is the actual code for this class. So this is the class, and I've got a cat and a dog fighting right now. You know what? I haven't even taken a look at what's going on in my. So yeah, it looks like it's going. I've been streaming for a while now, a whole hour. I haven't made any progress. I've just been talking my way through. So I'm just really testing it, taking a look. But so when we take a look at the code here, we find that command 101 does, this is the code, like I said, this is the code for this command, which is the documentation. The code says if game message is busy, you're going to set the game message, if it's not busy. So if it isn't, if it's not busy, you're going to set the face image, you're going to set the background, you're going to set position, so forth. But it tells you got a loop right here that says while this dot next event code equals 401, you're gonna keep doing it. So so that's why we got 401. So while the event code is 401, it's gonna keep repeating it. So that's how we have 101, which is the command. Here it is. It was. Come on now. List 101 followed by 401. So as long as there's 401 and we only had one line, but we could test this. So we can go cancel, we could edit this, edit. Don't touch my rock. I'm serious, man, for real. Okay, he's telling you, don't touch my rock. So now we're gonna take a look. We're gonna apply that. We're gonna save it, and we're gonna go ahead and click on this, and we're gonna refresh this page. And now what we're taking a look at is the same item, which is the rock, which is number 4. And oh well, it's already open. So now we've got 101. This is the list now. Yeah, the list for the pages. So we got code 101, 401, 401, 401. So now you'll notice 4, and then it's got code 0. So finally it ends. So going back right here, it's telling you as long as there's 401, it's going to say this index, and you're adding parameters. But then it's going to have a switch as well that says this is the next. If you've got a case 102, you're going to have show choices, input number, and select item. So these are things that I'm not messing with right now. So I'm not going to have this problem in what I'm doing right now. So then it says this message. So basically that's it. So the 0, if there's a class 0, nothing really happens here. If there's a code 0, I mean. But it seems that RPG Maker is throwing out automatically an extra code in this list, which is just a blank line. So that's something to, it's smart enough to keep in mind, that whenever I do anything in the front end, it always throws in an extra line for free. It's blank. And it's something that I did when I was making the plugin for the throwable earlier. I did realize that it was giving me a problem when I didn't add it in. So I'll be adding it in more than likely when I begin this. So now now we've noticed that. I've kind of explained what's going on here, how we can take a look at these events, and we can actually take a list and we can find out what these commands mean. You can actually go and I can take a look at all these commands. So for example, let's change this. Now I'm gonna delete that. So let's go ahead and put a new event, and I'm gonna say in this event, let's go ahead and transfer player. So we're gonna I'm gonna put my player over there. So, and I'm gonna retain it, and I'm gonna do nothing. So apply. So now when you click on this rock, you're gonna transfer the game player over to somewhere else, and there's not gonna be any fade or anything. So I'm gonna click on that. I'm gonna save that, and so now we're gonna take a look at this. So now this is gonna change. So now I know when I click on that rock, I'm going to teleport. I'm going to refresh this. So now I've got the same ID, so once again, this is the events, event number 4. And now I've got the pages, and I've got one page, and this page has a list. Click on list, and here you go, list. Once again, it's an array of 2. It's got code 201 now. So I'm going to click on it. So you notice how I teleported over there. So I was over here, click on it, teleport. Oh, look at that, I teleport. And I'm gonna click on it, teleport. It's part of the video game. So if you ever want to, teleport. See, this is something that you could do in the RPG Maker. It's interesting, it's fun. Part of a game, you can make a character, all kinds of things. Hey, what's going on? I don't know what's going on. I just keep teleporting. Whatever. But it's code 201. So we can go to command 201. You'll notice that here it is, command 201. 201. Transfer player. That's exactly that same code that I did over here. Transfer player. That's all I did. And over here I'm going to go ahead and command. Let's go ahead and command 201 is what it was. So now I got it even tells me here in the code, transfer player. And it's got some things going on, so you could take a look at it. And I'm not going to take a look at it because I don't need to transfer my player. I'm simply showing that in the game class, game interpreter, you got all your commands, and you can just as easily by by taking a look at the events, the data map, the events, and taking a look at that array. And I'm just watching it here in the sources. You can console log it as well if you need to, but I set a watch up and I'm watching it. And you can see what's going on in this list, and you can see how the different commands interact and how they do things. So you can, like I said, what I've done is in the past, you can make some sort of mechanic that works, and then you could see how it's done in the list, and then you can go back and recreate with the plugins the events using the note tags. I could put different note tags and put different meta. I could put all kinds of different, like I said, this is for throwable in the stack, but say for example, I wanted an event that every time I clicked on it, maybe a pop-up popped up, like a message popped up. And I wanted that message to always pop up over and over again on a bunch of different items, and instead of having to create this, put this over and over and over again, I would just put in a note, and I could just say that thing, something. And I put that, and I could just make events over and over and over again that just have that thing right there, something, and not have to do these event commands over and over and over again. I would just have copied them. I would have just noted them once in this list. I'd have gone, made a plugin, and then now I could do it over and over again instead of having to recreate the code over and over again. And so that's pretty useful for keeping that in mind, or keep that in mind, because that's useful of what I'm doing right now in this particular video. What I'm explaining, how to notice that. But it's already kind of late, and I know I didn't make any progress in my plugin, but I do think I did quite a good explanation of these events here, and we did even manage to get into this where when I set up this the code. But what I was going to do is I was going to recreate this code, and I was taking a look at the pages, because my problem was when I ran this, and if we run it one more time, let's go ahead and uncomment it. And remember, when we come out here, the console is going to uncut, unexpected. Let's see what happened here. Oh, that's my bad right there. Forgot that. But now when you can do it, the game should. Well, I thought it would crash, but it's not crashing. Oh, I know why it's not crashing. Is because let's cancel that. Yes. My problem is I got throwable. Let's go ahead and put stack 1, which doesn't really matter because this should crash the game. So now when I click on it, new game, it should crash the game. Type error, because it has checked the meta, and then the meta has proven to be true, and all of this has happened. And what has happened is we're crashing. Now we're crashing because my page, what is it telling me? It's crashing me. Switch 1 valid. It's not reading this property. So let's go ahead and put on this variable page, I've got conditions. So let me go ahead and realize that this page conditions, it's going to start getting pretty big. So let's get back to over here. Let's go back to this page, global, and I think I'm going to forget how to. I'm trying to find this data map, and we got a map. We got the events. We got an event, and we've got pages, event page, conditions, and it's telling me Conditions needs conditions. I got actor ID and actor valid. It tells me switch one valid. So what is it telling me? What's crashing in? Switch one valid. So let's go ahead and do switch one valid and put it false because we don't need switch one valid. I don't want switch one valid. And switch one valid, once again, I don't want any of these. I'm recreating a page that I've already made in the past. I kind of don't want any. I'm recreating this page, in fact. I'm trying to recreate this page, which this script. So if you notice, the conditions were, I didn't need any of these. Switch one. So switch one, I don't need that. I don't need it. So we're going to go ahead and put in this conditions event actor. We're going to go switch one valid. If you notice, we're going to go false. I'm going to save some room because I'm doing this on one line. Let's go ahead and do that for right now. I'm going to go ahead and do that for right now. Let's see if that fixes anything. Okay, switch one valid. Cannot read properties. Switch one valid of undefined. Let's see. Game map. Setup. Game map. Oh, I probably should get this. X out of that. Copy that. Pages. So, you know what? Pages, let's go ahead and put page. So, and I need to go ahead and take this out. I got to put this in the proper order. So, now I got it. Alright. So, that makes your... So I make a page with conditions, and there's the pages, and I got that page, which just is one page in it. I just got one page in it. Let's see what happens now. Tile ID of undefined. So you'll notice that there's a tile ID. Well, what's a tile ID? So suddenly, there's a lot of things going, now it's a new error. Cannot read tile ID of undefined. So what is the tile ID? So now that's something new that I'm not entirely sure what that means. So that has something to do with the map though. So this is the tile ID is, let's see. Yeah, let's discard changes. So what would the tile ID be of this? Cannot read property, and if we take a look at our type error, cannot read property tile ID of undefined at game event setup page settings. So it's at the setup events. So it is all ultimately what we're going to go ahead and do is it's the setup page. So what are we doing? What are we doing here? If we take a look at our code, game map, setup event. So the game map, there's that setup event. So this setup events. So once again, what I've done is I've put a new event and I've spliced it into the data maps, and then I do setup events, game map setup event. And what that method does is it actually sets up all the events. So it is setting up the events, and when it is setting up the events, we're crashing here. So it's crashing once again. So setup settings, you got the setup page, you got a refresh, initialize event, and set up page settings. Cannot read tile ID. So we got to look for that setup page settings. So we're going to go find this game event, and we're going to look for setup page settings. So let's see if we're in class game interpreter. So let's go for class game event, and we're looking for a method called setup page settings. There it is. Setup page settings sets up the event page settings. So it doesn't really tell me anything. It just tells me in this documentation, but it does show me that it's one of the many methods that is on the game class event, and the claim is the game object declared class event. So what we have here is that this is somehow doing what we're trying to tell it to do, and we are trying to tell it to make a new game event whenever this meta stack is found. So I'm not even really doing any checks on it. I'm just saying that if an event has this stack meta tag on it, go ahead and make a new game event. And I'm just putting it I'm making a cone with and I'm putting it at XY of 1010 with an XY value of 1010 on the map. So I'm not even putting it on the character yet. I'm just saying that as soon as the map loads, go ahead and put a cone right there on 1010, and that cone is going to be a cone that is throwable. But we're still having this error here, tile ID. So what we're going to go ahead and do is that we're having this problem on the at setup page settings. So let's go to game event. We're going to go ahead and find set up page settings. Oh, and here it is right here. We can find it right there. So set up page settings. So what is this game event doing right over here? So this is where it's crashing. And look, you'll see right there, it's got a tile ID. So variable page, this page, variable image, page image. If image.tileID is less than 0, this set tile image. Else this, so right here, what's going on right here? So basically that's what's going on is we do not have this image tile ID. So we need an image tile ID. So that's what's going on here is when we take a look at this throwable, what are we setting? We're setting up a page and we're giving that condition, actor ID, switch ID. So we're not even, and we're giving it a page, new ID. So basically it doesn't even have this page, this new event. This is the event. I have an ID, meta, name, note, pages. And pages is right here, page, all I've got is conditions. So I satisfied that switch one valid. Remember that, but now I'm having a tile ID, so the page has conditions over here. So now I got this page conditions. Well, it also has an image. Well, the problem is I don't have an image, so now let's put an image, and here's a data class for an image. So I got to put an image out here. And here's the tile ID finally. Tile ID. Cannot read property tile ID of undefined. So you can't read property tile ID of an image because I don't have an image associated with this class. So I got to put an image here. So I got conditions, but it's making me put an image. So I've got an interface here for an image. So, and it also has an image right here. So the image is an image defined. Okay, so I gotta put an image. So let's go ahead and do this. So on this page, I've got conditions, and it's also gonna make me put an image. So I'm gonna have to make an image, and this image is gonna have to look like this. It's going to have these properties. It's going to have a character index, character name, direction, pattern, tile ID. So these are things that I'm going to have to put in. Let's go ahead and might as well look. It's a number, a string, a number, a number, and a number. So this isn't too difficult. What is a tile ID? The tile ID, if the specified graphic is not a tile, this value is 0. Oh wow, so what I'm going to end up having to do now is, let's go ahead and take this out. Let's say stack 1. We're making, so let's go ahead and get rid of this all again. So once again, the image, let's put a blank object right now. So this is all code. I'm gonna comment it out again. So if it finds a stack, it's still commented out. So now we're not going to crash anymore. Comment it. Now nothing is going to happen. But if we go to our sources, we're looking at this. We're going to see that it's got an image. So remember, we saw this conditions, direction fix, image. So it's, even though our event has an image, when I'm making an event over here, I'm making a new event that does not have an image. So what I'm going to want to do is that new page is going to want to have, I'm going to have to take, so I'm going to have to, because I'm going to have to take, well, here's what I'm going to have to decide some things here. Is I'm going to have an image here, and am I going to have one image or two images? And what I mean by that is I'm going to have, say for example, do I want a stack of cones and a one cone? Do I want the one cone to be a different image than the image for the stack of cones? Because that would add more interaction to the video game. So if you think about it, I might want to have a cone that has, a little image that has three or four, three little cones here. That way when you as the player are playing, you notice that, hey, that's a stack of cones, not one cone by itself. So a stack of cones looks different than a cone. And right now, when I get the stack of cones, it's making a cone, but it doesn't know what image to use yet, and I don't have a default image. So that's what I'm saying. I'm gonna have to decide, am I gonna, or because what I could do is I could just steal. So for example, right here, I already have an image, and you see there's my tile ID. You see there's, hey, tile ID, character, other one. So I could go ahead and take this, and I could put it in my code, and I could just say, hey, when you got this, go ahead and find all your image and use that same image and make it as part of my new event. But that would mean that the stack event, the stack image would be the same image as the image that I'm going to be picking up. And so that's going to be part of the plugin. So I'm going to start throwing in new variables that I have to look for. When me as the developer come back. So when I'm going to put stack one, say for example, now I'm going to have to put image, and I'm going to have to put in actor one or whatever. So now you're going to have to put an image tag so I know what image you're going to use for your stack. So when you pick up your stack, when you go to your stack, you're going to be able to pick up an image stack, or you're going to make an event, and that event is going to have an image that you tell it to have. So that's going to be interesting. I'm going to have to do that. But I have been streaming for a while now. I am going to go ahead and end this stream for now. Like I said, I haven't made too much progress. I've just been streaming, kind of explaining the process, and I hope that if anybody comes across this, that it helps them out to understand what it was that I was doing, because this was pretty high level stuff here for the event system for making a plugin, and it's just a great way of understanding how to make a plugin that mimics the events that you've created in game, so that you can use them in other games, or as I'm using it, so that I can make multiple events, many events, because this game's going to have a whole bunch of this, and I'm going to use multiple, instead of just cones, I'm not just going to have cones, for example. Like later on, I'll have other items, because this person is just simply making cones around the street, but later on, characters will be picking up other things. For example, rocks or debris. I'll have other pieces of debris, rocks here, tools and stuff. I'm not going to really explain the game now, but for example, rocks. I may want to use rocks. I'll have a stack of rocks. Right now I have a stack of cones. Maybe I'll have a stack of papers. A stack of papers. You might, and I might want a stack of papers where the character goes and grabs a piece of paper and delivers the papers, so forth. And that way they'll go throw it somewhere. Or, for example, maybe I might, uh, like want a road that is filled with rocks, and those rocks, you got to go grab them and move them out of the way and so forth. So I want different pictures to use this image. Even though I use this plugin, I'll be using different images. So for different events, but it'll still be the same plugin, and I'll be able to just, with a matter of putting an event down and putting in different note tags, I won't have to recreate all the code that is required to do this, because there will be a lot of code that is required. I'll simply have to put different meta note tags, and I'll be able to make different images. Even though they're all doing the same thing, I'll be able to add in different sound effects, different images, all while using one plugin, just by changing the different meta tags and their values. But like I said, I'm going to go ahead and end this stream now. I'll pick it up later on as I continue this plugin. Next time I probably won't talk so much and explain so much. I might just I might just work it out and do it, and maybe just play some music like I was doing. But anyway, if you enjoy, please subscribe, like the video. It is RPG Maker plugin development, and I will continue more practical. This has been practical development. It's a series I'm going to keep doing. It's a practical development series, actually looking at how to program. And this is the thought process. I was actually, if you notice, I looked at the documentation, I looked at the code, I looked at the back end and the front end. I tested it. I used the console logging. I used a simple watch in the debug console, and I was able to show you how I followed the stack trace so that we were able to find all the way that tile ID. So we didn't know what was missing on the pages, but when we followed the stack trace, I was able to show you how it was the image that page was missing. So I'm recreating. So when I'm making a new event, and it is going to be one of those one of the interfaces, and that interface has several required objects, and it has a few, it has some required objects or arrays or whatever. It has some required things in that object that were not being fulfilled. Remember that switch one valid wasn't being fulfilled, and then I threw it in there, and suddenly it was being fulfilled, but the tile ID was not being fulfilled because I didn't have an image for that new event. And that was just by following the stack trace. So this has been, like I said, practical development, and it's just the first series. This is a test, is a pilot or a test stream for that practical development, where I'll actually be going through documentation, going through code, going through the thought process, and explaining myself for what it is that I'm doing, and that way you can get people can get a better demonstration instead of just a how-to video that shows you the same material over and over and over again, how to set variables, how to make loops, and so forth. This has been Mike with Practical Development Mike with High Plains Design Studio with Practical Development in JavaScript in RPG Maker, making a video game. Have a good night. God bless you. Remember knowledge. Obtain knowledge. Obtain knowledge.